Hi, it's Tegan, and today our upcycling adventure is paper beads. So what you need to make basic paper beads, you need some sort of paper. Today we're using junk mail. You need something to cut with. This can be scissors, a penknife, a rotary blade, whatever you have, whatever works for you. Some glue, some sort of adhesive. White school glue is great. Tacky glue, a glue stick, something like that is just fine. And then you're also going to need some sort of stick to wrap it around, or if you have a bead roller, you could use that. But if you have a bead roller, you're probably not watching this. So optionally, you can also use a template if you desire, or you can print these, you can purchase these, and that will help create the shape of your bead. And then also optionally is something to finish or seal your bead with once you've created it. You can use Mod Podge, you can use nail polish, there's other sealers out there. You can even just use white school glue that's a little bit watered down. All of those things give different types of finishes for different purposes. So anyway, let's get to it. For making beads, there's first you got to think about how you're going to cut your paper. This bead here is made using a long skinny rectangle. Some of them are about 3/4 of an inch. This one's about 1/4 of an inch. So that's one way to cut it. A very common way as well is to cut with a long isosceles triangle. It kind of becomes skinnier in the middle there. It's a little bit more rounded. So that is a very common option as well. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And you can take the same technique and just cut a skinny rectangle to make the other type of bead. So you're going to need some junk mail. I have already cut this sheet out of this catalog that showed up at my door. Bright and colorful, nice and fun. Plenty of junk mail works. You want to consider the type of paper a little bit. This is pretty thin, and it works just fine, and you can use thicker and thinner. One thing you do want to think about is gloss a little bit. I was working with a Little Caesars ad the other day that was very thick and glossy, and the adhesive did not like that, so kind of beat it up on it. So you just kind of have to experiment and see what's going to work for you. So to do the long isosceles triangle, first, I have a ruler here. You don't even necessarily need a ruler. I'm using a ruler. And for this next part, I'm going to use a rotary cutter. You could use a penknife. And this is just kind of a standard size here, so that's good. You can get an idea. So I'm gonna make a slant on the edge here. I'm gonna use my rotary cutter. If you use a pen, you can just trace all of these things and go back and cut with scissors. So that's kind of scrap there. But now what I'm going to do is make an isosceles triangle. You can see fatter here, skinnier here, and generally you want to cut away from yourself if you're using any sort of blade. And there we go. Kind of sticking because I had some glue on there, but there is an isosceles triangle. And then to keep going, it's a good idea just to go ahead and cut a whole page at a time. Save yourself just from a efficiency point of view, and just kind of keep going. And I wish I wouldn't have glued down beforehand, but there we go. And then just keep alternating. You can do freehand. You could also measure exactly what you're doing if you wanted, like how fat it started at or what have you. Depends on what you're doing, what the goal is, and how your personality works. So I'm going to set this aside and show you with these sheets how to roll them up. So the next tool I'm going to get out here is a dowel. So you can use a lot of things. You can use a dowel, you can use a toothpick if you want, where are my toothpicks here? Toothpick. I'll show you with both. It's the same technique, but there are nuances to using either one. Advantages of using a dowel is you have a bigger hole to thread things through. So if a child is going to be threading these beads, like with yarn or something, a dowel is great. I think this is a 3 1/16 inch dowel. Toothpicks are great if you're going to make something that you want a little bit smaller, and you can kind of see a size difference here, just to give you kind of comparison of what your end product is going to look like. This is much fatter than this. This is also made with a rectangle, and this with an isosceles triangle. So, all right, first things first, I'll show you the dowel. Taking your paper, gonna start, there's obviously more than one way to do everything, so you gotta find what works for you. You just kind of start rolling. It's okay if it's a little bit loose. It's actually better than too tight. You don't want to get it stuck on your dowel. So once you have it a little ways, you're going to want to go ahead and get some sort of glue. I'm going to use a glue stick here. You can use white glue, white school glue, Elmer's or something if you want. Yeah. And I just glued the whole thing. You don't have to do the whole thing at once. You don't even have to do the whole thing at all. You just can do a tiny bit there, and then at the end you want to get the tip. You want to kind of center it as you go if you can see it. And your hands will get sticky. Okay. There you go. So that is essentially a paper bead done. So you can see it is done. Now we want to seal. So you can seal it just with white glue. I am going to show you using nail polish, which is a little bit brittle. You can also use Mod Podge and there's some other things you could use. So I'll show you with nail polish really quick. Sorry about the focus issues. Okay. So, there you have it. And then you would just set this aside to dry. Upright, like in a cup or something, or across a box or whatever. Next up, I'll show you how I do this with the toothpick. Okay, I'm gonna take my paper, and I'm gonna start at the fat end again, and just start rolling it. The beginning process I feel like is a little trickier with the toothpick. It takes a little more getting used to. So once you start, kind of the same thing. Once you have a start, oops, sorry about that truck. Once you have a start, go ahead and take your glue stick, kind of glue down, or your white glue, depending on what you want to do there, and you just keep going. So there you have it. Okay, so there it is. Similarly to the last one, I probably will cover nail polish here and set it aside to dry. You can see they're very different beads, even though they started out in a very similar shape. So, even though their starting point was similar, their end point, very different, as you can see. All right, I hope that was helpful. I hope that it was enough to get you started. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments or contact me. And I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day.